if you're talented, either in one or several ways, you can get pretty far. The low-hanging fruit of almost any profession that you have some aptitude in are accessible. But as you get deeper and deeper into that field, if it's not aligned with your values, or you're just not enjoying the people that you're working with, or you don't trust the services that are going to be provided once you bring in clients, you can't do your work. And that's what happened to me. That, yeah, sure, I had the technical skill to do lots of things, but I kept hitting a wall because it wasn't where I was supposed to be. And there's a difference between being really good at what you are designed to be or being really good at a bunch of other things.
Hello, leaders, light keepers, and beautiful people. It's Michelle Phillips with another episode of Write Your Outcome. I am here today with Beth Masterman. What a great name, Masterman. I love your last name already. And hello, Beth. Welcome to Write Your Outcome.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. As always, I am going to read a little bit about Beth so you know her background, and then we're going to go into some really good conversation. She and I have a lot in common. Beth founded Masterman Executive Coaching in 2012 to reinvigorate engagement, confidence, and impact for senior executives and C-suite professionals who have risen to a level of authority and are noticing that something they are doing or not doing is getting in the way of their enjoyment, impact, and success. By cultivating deeper self-awareness and keen situational awareness, Beth helps individuals improve the quality of their professional lives and heighten efficiency and impact. Her program consists of both proprietary methods and proven assessment tools to inspire insight and support clients' development of new skills, strategies, habits, perspectives, and techniques. Beth works with individuals, groups, and teams on self-awareness, leadership skills, self-sabotaging behaviors, effective communication, listening, delegation, difficult conversations, and other skills essential to being a fully engaged, well-respected leader and communicator. Using a customized blend of assessments, one-to-one executive coaching, team and group coaching, she helps leaders make better decisions for themselves, their teams, and their organizations by providing a place for candid and confidential consideration of challenges, stakeholders, wants, and goals. Welcome, Beth. We have so much in common. I cannot wait to get into this conversation.
It's quite a list of things I do.
And I didn't even go into all her education because she's got all the degrees to go along with all these fabulous things. So yes, it is a list. And we do a lot of the same work. So let me just start from the beginning. How did you get into this field?
Well, my first love really was psychology. And then life kind of went forward. And I ended up getting a law degree, and I did get a master's in psychology, but I wasn't, and I did other things as well, lobbying, but I wasn't, really in that field of psychology. And after years of working and, doing many things, I just sort of hit a wall. I was doing work, but it was like drudgery. It was a job, and I needed to shake things up. Things in my life had shifted, become more stable. So I had the luxury of time to actually look, and came across executive coaching, which was, a treasure because it enabled me to use my psychology. It enabled me to use my business background, my legal background in a very surprising way. So it really integrated the skills I had developed, and I'm now able to deliver help and support in a way that really plays to my strengths and uses my experiences. So it was an evolution.
I love it. And I love how you combine them all. I had a woman last week and she told me she was a recovering lawyer.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that a lot.
So tell me what was surprising for you.
Yeah.
You said surprising ways.
Well, the law in particular has been extremely helpful. I was a prosecutor, and you may know, just from television that
you need to be a badass to be a prosecutor.
Where were you on the night of such and such? What were you doing? Who were you with? What was your purpose for being there? How many drinks did you order? So the whole approach to prosecution is who, what, where, when, how, all open-ended questioning. And if you get into coaching, as you know, it's the same thing for different reasons. But the concept is ask questions so you get the story from the person. Don't tell them the story, right? Give them the luxury of space and question to tell it from their point of view. So in the courtroom, the outcome is different. You're doing it for different purposes.
Right.
But in the coaching room, it's for exactly that, to help the person uncover what's really going on inside of them so we can work with their facts, not my facts.
That's so brilliant. And I love that. So the other thing I like, first of all, I think you have to be a badass to even be a prosecutor. So let me just give you the high five for that, because I'm like, I don't know if I could do it. But the other thing I picked up when you were talking is, and when I was reading your bio, it said people have risen to this level of success, but yet something's missing. And what I'm hearing in your story is that's exactly what happened to you. Is that correct? Am I hearing that right?
Absolutely. Where if you're talented, either in one or several ways, you can get pretty far. The low-hanging fruit of almost any profession that you have some aptitude in are accessible. But as you get deeper and deeper into that field, if it's not aligned with your values, or you're just not enjoying the people that you're working with, or you don't trust the services that are going to be provided once you bring in clients, you can't do your work. And that's what happened to me. That, yeah, sure, I had the technical skill to do lots of things, but I kept hitting a wall because it wasn't where I was supposed to be. And there's a difference between being really good at what you are designed to be or being really good at a bunch of other things.
Well, what I'm hearing too is you're listening to those whispers. A lot of people, I make the joke if you made a bad career decision, like some people will take a job, move up the ladder and hate it, and then start counting down the days till retirement. And I always say, just because you made a poor decision or a decision that you don't want anymore, you don't have to stay there. You have choices. And my theory too, with listening to you, is the alignment factor of, again, it looks good on paper. I've got the office, the salary, the title, whatever it is, but something's missing. And I always tell people, you're missing because your heart's not in it anymore.
That's a really good way of saying it.
Yeah, it's empty. So success without your heart in it is empty. So how do you help these leaders that, again, on paper are killing it? How do you help them make that reconnection?
I think that you're right. What's missing is them, but what's taken over, and it's not really something they can label because it's very insidious. It's kind of like water. It kind of infiltrates everywhere, and it's fear. And fear is what keeps you where you are. Fear is what drives you to come up with really smart reasons for why you should keep doing what you're doing. And so just helping people take a look at what's real, what's in front of you today, right? And what is causing you discomfort, and how can we move even, sideways into some of the areas that are really triggering. Some of these fears are legitimate. They're legitimate, and some people cannot leave their job for a variety of reasons. So what do we do to find other ways in their life, other places in their life where they can get the sustenance that they need? And when they know they're not in the right place, they can move toward that with more confidence and clarity, really, and calmness, that they'll get there, and to not stay, paralyzed in this anxiety trap of not knowing.
Yeah. So first, what I'm hearing you say is naming the fears, because some people don't even realize there is fear. It's just like, it's not even non-negotiable. I can't even think about it. And then you say, well, what are the reasons for that? And then I love what you said too, is some people, not everybody can just walk away. I understand that, but finding something else that gives sustenance. Can you give an example of that?
How can it be possible that you can be so afraid that you can't walk away? And I have a little example of a client that I'm working with. It's been extremely gratifying, but really kind of scary. She was in a very hostile environment. Race was involved. And And she was under so much stress. She had a heart attack.
Oh.
Young woman. So we needed to rebuild not only her health, but her confidence. And the other day I was speaking with her and she said, and this is now months, she says, I'm feeling ready now to start looking for something new. I just wasn't ready. And my reaction was, it's not just the emotional evolution or the psychological evolution. This woman, she had a heart attack, and I believe her body was sending her anxiety, sending her messages to slow down, that she was not ready yet. And when she was healed to the point of, being healthier, not worried about her medical status, then, then we could start folding in, well, what's going on here? And how might you talk to that person? How can you prepare for that meeting? Is it worth having a meeting with that person? Can you really trust that person? And we began to look at her situation more granularly. And one thing she's not as good at doing is simply picking up the phone and calling people. She knew who her allies were. Like, she didn't naturally, she's not that gregarious. We looked at how she could reach out to those folks. And so she started to make calls between our sessions, and she came back feeling better. She was able to find out that she wasn't the only one in the organization who had all her work taken away by the new leader. There was a whole group of people and all their work taken away. So she was so isolated and afraid. She couldn't normalize her situation.
You're hitting on so many good points. It's I like to think of us as like if you think of a four-legged stool, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, if one of those legs is missing, the stool falls over. So when her physical fell off, right? It's, she had to get herself back into that balance so she could take new steps. She was also taking things very personally and wasn't speaking up, which is unfortunately a key trait of women. I love my women. I'm a woman, but it's one of those things men are just better at sometimes, of using our network and asking for what we want versus expecting people to just see how hard we're working.
Oh, that's so true. Also, men were a lot more forgiving of flawed men than men are forgiving of flawed women. And given that everybody's flawed,
yes,
we start out at a disadvantage.
Yeah. So, but something I'm hearing you also do is you're just building the confidence, and almost you didn't give her anything she didn't have already. You just made her recognize what was in her already. And I find that a lot with my clients, their own self-doubts, their own, limiting beliefs and sabotaging beliefs, I think is what you said in your bio. Once we can highlight those, see them, we can mend them, heal them, so then she can put herself out. And the other thing you brought up when I was listening, I had a mentor years ago who was just calling me, who's now one of my dear friends. She used to say to me, Michelle, I want you to go interview this year. Just go out there. Like, the best time to look for a job is when you don't need one. See what you're worth on the outside world. And, I always love that advice. And I give that to my clients. When you're happy and, feeling comfortable, now is the time to just go put your name out, put your name in a hat and see what's available for you. What are your thoughts?
No, I do a very similar thing, but I haven't done it when they're happy, because usually people who come are, not super happy. But I do say, even when they want to stay in their job, they believe they want to stay in their job, I say to them, you should go find out, go interview, and realize that every day you get up and you go to work, you are choosing to get up and go to work. You are not in prison. There is free will. So what I'd like you to do is just go interview, low stakes, make sure it's with people that aren't going to talk about what you're doing. Let's see whether you can choose to go to your job again. If you choose your job over other things that are possible, then we can work with that affirmative choice instead of you thinking that you're just being treated miserably at this place that you're trapped in.
Yeah, it's the perspective. You're shifting their whole mindset, which I love. So what are your favorite tools to use with clients?
Oh, well, in every session, I always will, or new session, I'll give some assessment, not because I think it's the answer, or the truth, but it really helps build rapport. It gives us a common framework. So DISC, they're routine ones, DISC, Myers-Briggs. And lately I've been doing the values in action, VIA, to start working from strengths or to help them really examine what their values are. And it's just to ground us together. And it's usually very insightful. For those who learn a lot from the assessments, they come up like all the time in every.
Yes.
But for those that it doesn't resonate as much with, it kind of flows through. But it gave us a really good couple of sessions to talk about them objectively, without judgment. So this is who you are, compared to others who have also taken this assessment for normalization, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I love all those assessments. And I always feel you can almost layer one on top of the other if you're answering them honestly. But even as someone who's been doing this 25 years, even when I'm giving someone their assessment, I'm still learning about me because we're so deep and complex. And there's so much juice in these assessments if you really want to, squeeze them out.
The other thing I do over the years, having seen that leaders tend to struggle with the same things, and you read some of them in the introduction, delegation, which is communication in some way, difficult conversations, right? How to, the life cycle of a team. If you're going to be leading a team, what are the dynamics going on underneath that are guiding things that you can't see? How to lead meetings, how to manage up, that sort of thing. I have some white papers that I've generated. So I'll have a session around difficult conversations. We'll flesh through what it is for them. I tell them the model of how to have them every single time. They don't have to reinvent it. And then I'll send them the white paper. So again, first, like we were speaking about, first bring out from them, what is difficult for you? Who is this person? What's the worst thing that could happen? How are you going to prepare? What do you want out of the conversation? After we do that, then they get the white paper.
I know. Well, it all complements each other. So I love it. It all works together. And I'd love to hear your advice. So for me, one of the difficult conversations rang so many bells, and they all rang bells in my head. But I've had people like lose their jobs and like out of the blue, I had no idea it was coming. I've had people, then get the next job. I'm like, well, you need to meet with your boss every month. Well, I don't want to meet with my boss every month, right? That's like, they're so adverse to having these conversations. How am I doing? Is there anything I need to do differently? If you had to rate me right now in April, what would you rate me versus waiting till, I saw a funny post on LinkedIn yesterday and said, instead of 'twas the night before Christmas, it was 'twas the night before, performance review or something. But so I'd love to hear your advice on how getting people to, have those difficult conversations, put a toe in the water, so to speak.
So you want the 411 on the difficult conversations. All right. What is a difficult conversation? It's the ones you want to avoid. You know what they are. So the idea is to get through the avoidance. That's really the key. And what you have to do is decide what is the most important thing you want to get out of that conversation, right? And P.S., it doesn't have to be one conversation.
Yeah.
And you do not have to solve your problems in one conversation. What we want to do is break through the avoidance.
Hello, it's Michelle Phillips interrupting this podcast to talk about my brand new book, Energize Your Happiness. Tap into your personal energy and shape your destiny. I have spent 25 years researching, testing, and working with high performers. And most people think that happiness is something you earn after you succeed. I am here to tell you that we have it backwards. Happiness is a habit, and it is the fuel for everything that comes next. When I learn something and it helps me in my life, I want to share it with you. I want you to have more fulfillment. I want you to have more energy. And in Energize Your Happiness, I teach you how to manage your energy, not just your time. So you can lead yourself with clarity. You can regulate your emotions and stop running on empty. This isn't about positive thinking. It's not about pretending that life is easy. It is a practical, science-based approach that blends neuroscience, habits, and intentional mindset shifts that help you move out of stress into flow and right outcomes you actually want to live. When you learn how to apply the things that I talk about in this book, you don't just feel better, you make better decisions, you show up stronger, and you create results that last. So I am so excited about this book. I want to shout it from the rooftops. So right now, if you have not read it, I want you to go to energizeyourhappiness.com and I will send you a personally signed copy. You could go to lulu.com. You could go to amazon.com. And if it's already helped you have a better outlook, feel better, sleep easier, please, I would so appreciate a review if you are called to do this. We are all in this together and I want you to be happy. I want you to feel fulfilled. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this message with you. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get back to the podcast.
Because all that energy going into avoidance, right, is blocking other things from happening. So you're going to have a conversation with your boss because you would like feedback. You're feeling uncomfortable. You're not sure how you're doing. So that's your purpose. And you go in and you say to the person, you always have to use these words, so-and-so, I'd like to have a conversation that's a little bit difficult for me to have and might be difficult for you. So could we make some time to have that? By letting the person know, saying this is a difficult conversation, you're giving them the respect to take a second and prepare. It happens in a microsecond. If I say to you, I want to have a difficult conversation with you, Michelle, you're going to get frightened. And when I say, look, I really need more feedback. I know you don't have a lot of time, but would it be okay for you to cut out some time to speak with me about, right? So the person on the other side prepares and then they're relieved. And so it softens it right away. Now you go to a conversation and you say, look, I feel like I need more feedback. Is there something you could tell me about how I'm doing in meeting my deadlines? I'm struggling, that sort of thing. You tell your point of view. They tell their point of view. Now what you've reached is mutual understanding of the thing that is difficult. Now you've done it. You've done it. You can say, okay, thank you. That makes me feel much better. Or it might have opened up a can of worms. So what you do then is you say, okay, well, that was really helpful. Let's continue this. Let's make another appointment and continue our conversation. So now you're in a completely different place, right? You have addressed that issue that has caused you anxiety, and you've moved through it. And if people can remember that the biggest thing about a difficult conversation is avoiding the avoidance,
Yes.
right? Getting around that and stating it and knowing that a successful conversation is simply one that evokes mutual understanding. That's the goal. Mutual understanding, not problem solving. No, not magic to make your life wonderful. It is simply mutual understanding around that thing that is difficult.
Those two things are the ones that really rang for me. It's getting over the anxiety. And I promise anyone listening right now, what are you avoiding? What conversations are you avoiding? It's Christmas is coming. Our holidays are coming. Is there anyone in your family or in your work life that you need to have a conversation with? And the avoidance, what I watch people do is the avoidance eats you up alive more than actually not solving. That's what's so important about what you're saying, Beth. Just picking up the phone or walking into the office, sending the email saying, I would like to have a difficult conversation. Even just sending that email or that energy gets released and you took that brave step. So I love that. And then not having to solve everything. And then this is the thing, I think a lot of leaders or a lot of people that I work with is we try to always solve things when it might not be about solving. And the new mantra I heard was more Yoda, less Superman. Let's tap into our wisdom that we're both here, we're both working together, we want to have a working relationship, but we don't have to solve everything. We don't have to save the day every time. And you gave such good concrete steps for doing that. Anyone listening, I just encourage you to try it on. And what's the other quote? I'm a quoteaholic. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. I love that. Like once you take that step, the fear goes away.
The funny thing is, in a difficult conversation, you're living with that ball of anxiety, right? It's something negative. So you avoid it, you avoid it. Once you go into that conversation, you have an opportunity, A, to be happier, right, about the situation, to actually get through that thing, and B, replace one kind of anxiety with another kind of anxiety, but it's new.
So say more about that. Say more what you mean.
Well, people are afraid of the consequences of a difficult conversation, right? They're afraid somebody's going to be angry, or somebody's going to think they're annoying, or somebody's going to react in a way that they won't be able to manage. So the fear is based on a prediction of what might happen. When you do that, you face that prediction. So what did happen, what didn't happen, and let's say the conversation doesn't work out that well, right? Now you're dealing with something concrete. What was it about that conversation that didn't work out well? Where am I now?
Okay.
Right? What's shifted since I had the conversation? And can I deal with this issue more easily than I dealt with just having that conversation? It's good to have new problems. Life is full of challenges. If you're stuck in the same challenge day after day, month after month, you're stuck. Right? New challenges.
I like what you're saying. It's like you got more evidence. If I go back to the lawyer talk, I have more evidence. So now with this new evidence, what are my next actions? And then you always have a choice. That's the biggest thing I like people to. And I always say the situation is never wrong. The way I'm looking at it is wrong. So if I'm working with a boss that's really coming down on me, it's like, this is helping me deal with difficult people, and this is temporary. I don't have to be here forever. And then, starting to use your network. So really good. I love these conversations. So tell me, what kind of clients are you looking for? Are you looking for big corporations, small corporations? Where do you do your best work or most of your work?
Well, most of my work is one-on-one. So when I do team coaching, it's through the leader. So I will start with the leader. They come up with issues with their team, if any, and then I will go into the team with them. I might sit at a meeting. If the team gets once they're comfortable with me, then I can make a few comments. There have been situations where I work with the leader, but I also will meet with the team members in our effort to align the team. But the real power of the work I do is really the one-on-one. I like to facilitate a lot. So I don't have a lot of workshops like scheduled, but I'm very comfortable facilitating groups. I ran one group for 13 years of professional service advisors, and I'm just comfortable in front of the room doing that, involving everybody. But the lion's share of my work is with senior leaders, emerging leaders, newly promoted, or high potentials who don't know how to act like executives, and so they're not going to get where they need to go.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's talk about that. Why? Where does that stem from? High potentials that don't know how to act like executives. Let's dive into that.
Well, to use one of your favorite ideas, it's habits. Right. It's habits. One woman, she's incredible. She's a revenue generator. She's helped grow the business tremendously. The people who she's brought in, they adore her. She really helps them on board. She's awesome. She wants to become a leader, but she can never make any of the company meetings, because she's out on the road, and she can't get there in time. So the question is, if you want to be an executive, you're going to have to run meetings, be at meetings. How can we think of you,
right,
you in that light when you're never at the table? It's not enough that you're doing an outstanding job. You can still do an outstanding job, but you've got to figure out what you can do less of so you can spend more time at the table. So that's an example where you get a lot of reinforcement for the great things that you've done, and you don't want to let go of it, because that's where you have your credibility. That's where you prove your worth. And it's really hard to let go of the things that give you status and stability at work.
And what I'm hearing too is the clarity, because sometimes we get so caught up into the working at our job instead of focusing on our career, which are two different things. So if you're in the day-to-day doing, and you don't have a clear definition of where you want to end up, what your outcome is, you want to write your outcome for the next level, for the next year, for the next month. Is that something you help them do, gain clarity on that vision they're walking into, the vision of themselves, I guess, that they're walking into?
I don't do a lot of writing exercises or that kind of thing. In that case, I was thinking two things as you were saying that. It is possible that the person is really, really good at their job and that's what they want, period. And,
Yeah.
and they think they want more. They should want more. They should want to move up. But if it's a perfect fit, it's a perfect fit. So having conversations to flesh that out is one approach. But I don't deeply go into envisioning, where
So it's through that process of questioning that you talked about earlier. Keep questioning them so they talk themselves and they gain the clarity through their own conversation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think maybe partly it's my own bias that I got to a place that was really right for me, but I had no idea executive coaching even existed when I started my career. So you have to stay.
Because it didn't when we started.
Not in America. It's just you have to have the skill to stay open and not risk averse, and consider that, yes, this was a great decision when I made it, but maybe it was just a step along the way as to what it is I'm ultimately going to do. And some people will cling to fiercely to a good decision. I think people who know they want to be doctors from the time they're kids and they grow up and they become doctors and that's the end of that. Well, more power to them. And I am totally jealous. But most of us don't. That's not what it
I didn't even know this was until my 30s. And it's all, so it is an evolution about staying open. I find a lot of people, or they tend to self-admit that they're in a toxic environment, that they're in a negative culture, these corporate cultures can be very negative and, soul sucking, that kind of thing. How do you help individuals, kind of navigate these kind of cultures?
Oh boy. I mean, it's hard to be general about that. I think acknowledging the feelings, getting them to actually talk about it and feel safe. I'm not going to go tattletale on them. That's really liberating. I've often had people say just that at the end of a conversation. It really just helps to take the time to hear about what's going on. I try to follow their lead and hold them and make them feel validated and rational. Even their emotions make sense. I don't know where they're going to end up. I really don't. And if somebody said to me, that's who I'm going to be. And I said, great, we're going to get there. I don't know. Well, I say to them, at the end of each session, I ask the same question. What's your next step? Based on what we discussed in this session. So they make a commitment to do something. We get back the next time. If they've done it, I say, great, tell me about it. If they haven't done it, I say, great, tell me about it. Because we learn about them. So there's, no judgment, really no destination other than the ones they set for themselves. I just try to flow with that, with my clients.
No, I love the approach. I'm just, I'm a writer, so that's why I give a lot of writing prompts and journal prompts and things. And what I'm hearing is I give the question and then they journal about it. You're doing very similar, live conversations. And to me, the validation is really important. You talked about using the VIA, which I love. And let me explain a little bit about what that is to the people listening. It's the root of positive psychology. It's 24 character strengths that have been designated, people agree with around the globe, no matter what your sex, age, ethnicity is. And it ranks your 24 character strengths from your strongest to, I don't like to say your weakest. I wish it was in a circle. But the ones that you use the most, what are your top 5? And then what I love about it is it helps people understand. I always say to them, imagine those top 5 strengths that you just identified. Imagine I said you can't use them for a week. And it's like, people feel like, oh my God, I couldn't breathe. And that's what when you like what you're doing, Beth, which I love, is you're showing them your strengths. You're validating that they're important and concrete things that they can then amplify. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. What I love
Yeah.
about the whole positive psychology approach, so you have the glass half empty and the glass half full, right? With every half empty or half full glass, there is half empty, half full, right? A lot of people, and this is the way our practice of psychology has evolved, focus on the emptiness, right? What's missing? What didn't I get as a child? Where's this pain coming from? Oh, I had so much loss. I see my life through loss of my mother, loss of my father, loss of my child, loss, 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 loss. And that's all so true and so painful and so real. What positive psychology does, and this values, is to say, what goes into helping a person flourish? What are the strengths? What are the values? What are the behaviors that you have used in times like this that help you realize that this is just what life is? And if you don't practice being positive, practice focusing in on the things that make your life enjoyable and manageable and pleasant, right? That when you're really down, you don't have that muscle. Right? If you've only focused on your misery, which for some people, it is so hard to see anything but. But is there one friendship, something that you can recall that helped you flourish and manage, and then you exercise that muscle? So those top 5 strengths show up. You may not even realize it, but when you know what they are and you ask the client, look for ways that you are using these every day. How do they come up? And help them exercise it, use it, notice it. When things really get tough, and they do, at least you have it. It's there. You can, pause, you can breathe, you can have a moment of clarity and start using those strengths again. None of the values are weaknesses. They're just like anything. It's what do you lean into? What are you most likely to turn to that's for your sustenance, for your feeling of balance? And you need to practice those.
I like what you said, exercise them and the muscle gets stronger. And that's what I love when someone comes to you, after a couple of months, oh my God, something happened that a week ago or 3 months ago would have sent me down spiraling. Now I recovered quicker. So that's what this does by building those muscles.
And
go ahead.
I said muscle sounds kind of like a metaphor, but I want to emphasize that there is new synapses growing in your brain, right? Every time you learn something new, you get literally a new connection in your brain. So you're not just exercising a metaphorical muscle. You are literally creating new and strengthening new positive connections in your brain. And if you don't, they're not going to fire.
Yeah, you have to work at, and I kind of envision this dirt road in my brain, and the more I use it, it starts getting paved. That's I guess I do live in a world of metaphors and visuals. But whatever, works for you is beautiful. Is there any other tools or things you want to share with us before we finalize today?
Well, I think just the key to a good conversation for anyone, coaches and anyone, is really honing your ability to listen, to notice when you are focusing on what it is you want to say next versus what is being said, because your next comment is always in the words of the person you're speaking with. So you're missing things if you're just thinking of what you want to say. So I think that is something I'm constantly working at. There's a great mnemonic, WAIT, WAIT.
Okay.
Why am I talking?
I love it. Yes, yes. Yes, as someone who has had to work on that very deeply. But, I feel your groundedness. And that's an energy you can't fake. So when you speak, it comes from a deep place. It doesn't come from a place where you're just kind of pulling. I just feel it. I feel your groundedness. I feel your wisdom. So it's working for you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I feel yours. You're wonderful to talk to.
Yeah, it's so fun to get, when like minds get together. We could talk all day. But tell us, where can people find you? What platform do you want to share?
I'm on LinkedIn, Beth Masterman on LinkedIn, and also Masterman Executive Coaching.com. And you
Excellent.
can contact me through either of those.
Yeah, I am a believer. The world, I don't know, the energy's moving really fast right now. And we need more people that are going to help us connect our head to our heart, to our gut. Beth is one of these master wisdom people. So thank you for being on Write Your Outcome. That's it, everyone, for this episode of Write Your Outcome. Please go link in with Beth Masterman and share this podcast with anyone you know that can use some help in creating difficult conversations and any of the wisdom Beth shared today. Thank you. Make it a great day and write your outcome.